YouTube, what's up? Back again for another daily fishing video here on Andrew Upshaw Fishing. Today's video, though, is going to talk about this bass. I caught this bass with my dad, and it was kind of an emotional day because a lot more happened than just catching this big fish. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. I'm going to talk a little bit about the techniques we used and how we approached that particular day and kind of the practice leading up to that particular tournament because I caught this in a tournament. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And also, hey, real quick, if y'all haven't yet, hit that sub button in the bottom right-hand corner. I greatly would appreciate it. And comment below, what is your personal best? I'd love to know what it is. We all have a personal best. My personal best spotted bass is just under 6 pounds. My personal best smallmouth is about 6 3/4 pounds. And my personal best largemouth is 12 pounds. So today we're going to focus on this big largemouth right here. And I hope y'all enjoyed the story, guys. And make sure y'all stay tuned for the rest of this video. Alright guys, today we're going to talk about this fish right here. And not just the fact that we're going to talk about bragging about this fish or anything like that, but I'm going to kind of walk you through the process of what transpired through time when we caught this fish. So I'm going to set you back. Let's look at the date here. 2/7/2009 was the day that this thing was caught and weighed in. So on 2/6/2009, my dad and I were out on Toledo Bend. We were practicing for a tournament called Bass and Bucks as a team trail. And my fiberglass boat was in the shop. I think I'd blown a lower unit or something. And I'm sitting there and Dad's like, hey, you want to fish? We'll fish out of our Express. We had an 18-foot Express with like a 115 on it. And I'm like, yeah, of course, let's go. So it's in February, so the fish aren't on beds yet. We know they're not on beds. It's a little bit too early. And we go into one of our favorite little spawning creeks, okay? We go in here, and the fish, we go down this one bank, and we're catching a bunch of males, like 2 pound, 2 pound, 2 pound, pound and a half, 2 pound, whatever. Throwing Texas rigs, lizards, Cincos, that kind of stuff. And there's this one little secondary point that kind of funneled between two little spawning pockets that I knew they used to spawn in all the time. And I said, hey, Dad, let's pull out there on that secondary point. I bet there's some big females staged up out there. And we pull out there, and first cast out there with a football jig, I catch a 9-pounder. I'm like, heck yeah, dude, this is where the females are, staged up in this timber on this point. Well, next cast, I catch an 8-pounder. And we just get out of there because we didn't graph them or anything like that. We just literally just kind of lined up on the point and I kind of knew where it was, and from years of fishing it, and that's how we knew where it was. So I catch a 9 and an 8, and I'm like, all right. I mean, we had no idea. Like, we're not going out there saying we're gonna go hitch 30 pounds. Like, that's our goal. We're just going out there to have fun, have a good time together. Like, just me and my dad, like just have a good time. And the next day we pull up there, and it was I want to say it was one of those trailered takeoffs because it was supposed to be a real windy day. Well, thankfully, because we got up there and we had no problem getting on our spot. And we're sitting there and we're waiting, and I make a couple casts and I don't catch one. I'm like, dang it. Like, of course. I make like 5 casts in a row. Same spot. My 5th cast, I'm dragging it up there. One eats it. I set the hook and I'm just horsing it in. Oh my God, I think it's a 5-pounder, Dad. I'm reeling it in. And I'm throwing 20-pound line, a 7.5-foot rod. I mean, I'm throwing big stuff. And my dad nets it. And he's like, oh my God. And I'm like, go put it in the live well, And I think it's like an 8 or 9-pounder. I have not seen this fish yet. Still hadn't seen it. He puts it in the live well, turns it on, we're pumping water in and all that stuff. And I'm like, all right, man, heck yeah. Like, we got one kicker out of the way, and I'm fishing. And about every 3 or 4 minutes, I see him opening that lid, just shaking his head. And he'd close that lid. And sure enough, I'm like, Dad, you gotta, like, get back to fishing, man. We got a kicker. We need to keep going. And he's like, you need to come look at this fish. And I go back there, and I'm like, good Lord, that's a big one. I'm like, it's probably a 10 then. And so anyways, we go through this area, and we catch a bunch of males. We don't get another bite on that point. We catch a bunch of males. We catch our limit. And we run to a little place that I love. It's a little underwater roadbed. And my dad picks up a Carolina rig 12-inch worm. I mean, I'm not kidding. He throws some of the more oddball things, but he catches a lot of fish on them. So I'm like, I don't ever really question what he does. So he's throwing this 12-inch worm in February, and I'm like, what are you doing, Dad? And just kind of give him a hard time. He catches a 3.5-pound spotted bass, lake record. I mean, legitimate lake record spotted bass for Toledo Bend. And at one point during the day, I catch, and it was our smallest fish at this point. We have all 3.5, 3 3/4 pound fish. And at one point during the day, it was time to cull that fish. And he said, hey, we need to cull that one. I'm like, we're not culling that fish, Dad. That is the lake record. Like, we're not culling it. And as far as I know, to this day, he still has the lake record on Toledo Bend. So my moral to this story is, you know, we didn't get so caught up on just catching fish. You know, we could have easily just gone in this pocket and caught a bunch of 2-pounders, 2.5-pounders, 3-pounders even. Caught 15 pounds, been happy, whatever. But we took a step back. We got all these bites. We set the hook a few times just to kind of see the quality we were dealing with. And we said, okay, if this is where we look at a lake map, an old school, like paper map, look at the lake map and we're like, okay, this is this pocket. If this is where all the males are, where are the females going to be? And we started looking at different scenarios in this little pocket, this creek. It's kind of a back end of a creek. And there was literally one piece of structure out there that those fish were going to hold on. And it was a little secondary point, had like 3 big pieces of standing timber on it. So what those fish would do is they would funnel in. These big females would funnel in, and then the males would just flock to the bank. Well, these females would just stay there because they felt safe. And then they just kind of go to their respective beds. So if you really pay attention to fish movements and how they transition, whether it's to go spawn or in some cases to stage up to go spawn or coming out to post spawn, a lot of times they use the same routes. And if you pay attention to where you're at and where these fish spawn on these particular lakes, you're going to catch a lot more fish. And that's how we caught this 12-pounder. It actually weighed 11 pounds, 15 ounces, I think. Or 11.96 is what they called it, 11.96. So it was 0.04 from being 12 pounds. Mind you, I caught this fish within the first 8 minutes of the day. Literally, the first 8 minutes of the day, we went the entire day with it stressed out in our live well and weighed in at 3 o'clock. So, I mean, there was a lot of time there. I mean, I'd go out on a limb and say that this thing weighed 12 pounds. No questions asked. In my book, it was a 12-pounder. Wasn't a 13, wasn't a 14, it was 12. But, I mean, 0.04, you're going to stress the fish out enough that it's going to weigh a little bit more than that. So, but guys, that's the story of my big fish, you know. And, you know, it was such a magical day for me because my dad was with me. He weighed in the lake records spotted bass, which was like the coolest thing ever. Like I said, I think to this day he still has it. So that was a huge deal for me. And I caught my personal best on the same day. So, a story that will live on forever for he and I. And it's one of those magical days that I'll never forget. So guys, I hope y'all enjoyed that story. If you haven't yet, hit that sub button in the bottom right hand corner. Greatly would appreciate it. And comment below, what is your personal best largemouth?